right, thank you for staying with Daybreak. Let's start this conversation on the state of the nation, where we talk about matters, politics, and everything in between there. We'd like to hear your views at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Daybreak on all the conversations that we're going to have. My guest already with me in studio, Honorable John Mbadi, who's a nominated member of Parliament, also ODM chair. Thank you so much for making time. Diana Gishengo is also here. She's the national coordinator at TISA, which is the Institute of Social Accountability. Asante sana for making time. Honorable Owen Baya, member of Parliament for Kilifi North and Deputy Majority Leader, will be joining us in just a bit. As soon as he comes in, we'll drop him into the conversation. All right, but let's start off with what happened yesterday. The prayer day, tax talk outshines unity call. First of all, before we even talk about these tax calls here, Honorable Mbadi, the opposition members were not at the prayer breakfast. Why?
No, we didn't take any collective decision not to be at the prayer breakfast, but I think each one of us made independent decisions. Personally, I've never attended these prayer breakfasts because I think there's a lot of hypocrisy. I don't see the value it is adding. Because when immediately you leave those prayer breakfasts, then you say things that you are castigating at the prayer breakfast or you are praying for. So to me, I think God cannot be deceived. I don't want to waste my time in attending prayer breakfasts, which is organized by Parliament and which is being attended by the leaders of this country, because it is hypocrisy. I have my way of communicating with God. I go to church. I'm a member of the Seventh-day Adventist, and I also pray at home. Look at what happened yesterday. Yesterday, for example, instead of praying, then now they went to campaign for the finance bill. Those are the reasons why some of us would find going for these prayer meetings a waste of time.
There was a call for reconciliation. Is there a need for reconciliation from your perspective?
Yeah, there could be need for reconciliation, but I think in Kenya we have overused this word reconciliation. Even when we know obviously what should be done, then we always talk that we need to be reconciled. Why can't we just do the right things and then we avoid reconciliation? Like if you are in government, please run government properly. Let people feel that the decisions and policies that you're coming up with are in the best interest of the people. There would be no need for reconciliation in that case. And the opposition will play its role. But now when you decide to behave like you are a small god and you are dictating to Kenyans what they should do, you are not listening to the citizen, then obviously then you first need to reconcile yourself or reconcile with yourself.
Okay. Diana, is this government being run properly? Because Buddy is saying that there would be no need for reconciliation if the government was being run properly.
First, I want to agree. I think the emphasis on reconciliation, it's not one of our values of governance and accountability. That's a religious process, and in all the instances we've tried to go reconciliation, we have lowered our standards of good governance. And if you want to think about the things we need to question, we prayed for the rains, okay, and did the entire setup of red carpet and so on at a time when people are starving. Surely, can people pray where they are? And we direct those resources to those who are starving. Yesterday, again, another prayer breakfast. When our schools, our counties are on the verge of collapse, what are we praying about? Okay, and why this government, I feel strongly, is not being run the way it's supposed to be. They promised Kenyans, and if you listen to people, they feel betrayed, very, very betrayed. Why? Because they promised there will be austerity measures. We will not overtax you. We understand the common man. What are we seeing? Increased borrowing, increased spending, increased taxation. Something is fundamental. I don't know why, and they contradict themselves every day in, day out. You hope that today is when they have gotten clarity, maybe after the prayers. No, they go ahead and contradict themselves even further. Think about the housing levy, and the claim is this is something that Azimio explained very well. Are they now implementing Azimio plans? There's something, this government just needs to go back, okay, reflect on what their dream is and then come back and communicate it clearly. If there has been a shift, tell us this was the ideal, and based on what we have found, this is where we are going. And if you do that, maybe take a conciliatory tone, okay? Not the bullish tone that we keep seeing day in, day out. So something is not going very, very well. But luckily we have the deputy leader of majority. He'll tell us why they are speaking from both sides of the mouth.
And he's right here, Honorable Owen Byers just joined as Member of Parliament for Kilifi North and Deputy Majority Leader. We were talking about the prayer breakfast and why there's a need for reconciliation, but they're saying that the government is not being run properly. If it was being run properly, there would be no need for reconciliation because everyone would be happy.
Thank you very much, Trevor. And I want to say that what we had yesterday was a communion with God and men at Safari Park as part of the National Prayer Breakfast. And the National Prayer Breakfast is a national event, and we were doing the 20th since it started. And it is on record that the person who started the National Prayer Breakfast is Kalonzo Musyoka, as the founding patron of the National Prayer Breakfast. I would like to pick up where my former leader, John Badi, left. That it was hypocrisy. In the 19th prayer breakfast was held under very tense circumstances, in a situation where the then deputy president of the country was not accommodated on the same table as the president, just because at that particular time there was a handshake, and that the handshake brothers saw fit to eject the legally elected deputy president of the country from the seat where he ought to have occupied. And a staff of parliament was actually used to remove the seat and thrown away. The deputy president was put on the table very far away. And yet, for them, that was not hypocrisy. That was a prayer breakfast that they cherished, that they participated in, that they glowed about it, that this is a prayer breakfast. But today, when a similar event happens, where actually the president is telling everybody else, come, let us reason together. That's what the Bible says. And if they are believers of the Bible, they say, come, let us reason together. The national anthem itself tells us in one accord. Then who is hypocritical here? The people who do not want to believe in the words of the Bible. The Bible does not, it's not indiscriminate that it says, come, let us reason together. It says, come, let us reason together. It is in Isaiah. Come, let us go together as a country. And that is the call of the National Prayer Breakfast. So when other people come and say because of political reasons, you know, they're trying to mix politics and a unity event, because the National Prayer Breakfast is not just a prayer breakfast for the country, but it is also a unity event. It is one of those events that call for unity, like a national day. So when leaders, people who call themselves leaders, actually boycott such an important national event, and actually when members of parliament, and this is an event that is organized by Parliament. Members of Parliament today say, we cannot come to the National Prayer Breakfast because you guys are hypocritical. But when we come to Parliament, they participate in the Parliament prayer that is led by the same speaker, the speaker who led the event on the other side. Yeah. Then I look at them and say, who actually is hypocritical here when you say you cannot go for that?
But Honorable Baya, you say, come, let us reason together. But are you listening to reason when your own members of parliament are saying things like the finance bill will pass without a comma and the government can never be defeated? So are those people listening to reason?
Let me tell you this, Trevor. You see, politics is politics. And even when my brothers go to their meetings in Azimio and ODM, they are dictated to. They are told, you must bring down that finance bill. I was a member of ODM, and my leader here knows how I opposed the 2018 finance bill, and I'm on record. And we were there at Orange House, and I was told, oh, and you must support that finance bill. I said, no, I won't. and that began the genesis of my exit from and there were very many questions. I think I asked 5 questions in that meeting, and Junet told me to shut up, you know, because I should not argue in a... So when they say that every coalition, we have a manifesto, a Kenya Kwanza manifesto, that promised to do certain things, and those certain things will not be done with air, they will be done with money. That money needs to come from some place. That place is we choose to go and borrow and sink this country into a deeper hole, or we say, look, why don't we look at internal sources? What are the available internal sources? So that we stop digging and start building better. How do we start building better? We look at what we have in the country, collect what we have, and implement that manifesto. We have a manifesto as Kenya Kwanza to implement. Azimio are telling us, don't implement that manifesto by not collecting taxes, because if we don't collect taxes and we do not have money, we will not implement that manifesto. If we cannot implement that manifesto, it means we'll have failed as a government. Okay. So what they're trying to do is they're pushing us into failure by telling us do not collect the taxes by not voting in the finance bill. This finance bill is supporting our manifesto.
Okay. Right.
And that manifesto is good for Kenya. That is why Kenyans voted for Kenya Kwanza, because they believed in the manifesto of Kenya Kwanza.
Okay. But this is interesting debate because you were once on the same side. But
yes, you know, I really didn't want us to make the prayer breakfast a topic of discussion. But what Owen just said is the more reason why attending those prayer breakfasts is a waste of time. Actually, I forgive him because he was not here when I started. I said very clearly I've never attended those prayer breakfasts, so it did not start with the one for yesterday. And I want to be clear to you that one of the reasons why I find those prayer breakfasts not adding value is exactly what you said that happened to the former deputy president, who is now the current president. Those are things that should not happen in a prayer meeting and a prayer session. There should be humility. And again, when you talk of come, let us reason together. Did you reason together yesterday when you start campaigning for a finance bill in a prayer breakfast? But you see, what Owen Baya is saying is partly true, partly not true. What he's referring to was not actually the finance bill. What we called the meeting at Orange House to discuss then was the return of that finance bill after it had gone to the president. It was a memorandum of the president. And I will tell you that that is what led the VAT to come down from 16 to 8%, because the president had insisted, the president then had insisted on 16%. I remember, and Owen Baya is correct, that he raised, I'm the one who was actually chairing that meeting, and he raised fundamental concerns, one of which he said if you have this VAT on fuel or petroleum products at 8%, Kenyans will suffer. The cost of transportation will go up, and that is correct, that is true. But I wonder why today that same percentage is going to 16, he's not seeing any problem with it. I want to conclude by answering to what he said regarding the manifesto of Kenya Kwanza. Yes, you must implement your manifesto, but you are then not truthful about your manifesto. You should have told Kenyans that when you elect us into office, we will implement the housing program by levying 3% on your salaries to finance it. That you didn't tell Kenyans. In fact, I remember what Ruto told Kenyans was that Uhuru was overtaxing them, and that he would make sure that taxes come down. And there are so many clips to that effect. Today, taxes are going up. So that you did not communicate to Kenyans. So the question is, are you really implementing the manifesto that you sold to Kenyans, or you are implementing a manifesto that was in your head and you refused to communicate it to Kenyans, and therefore you are dishonest, you deceived Kenyans? We deserve apology. Those who voted for you, I did not, deserve apology. And that is why they are so frustrated, as Diana has said, because they thought things would be done differently. When President Trudeau came into power, the day he was sworn in, one of the things that he said was that he was going to reduce Uhuru's budget by 300 billion. He not only failed to reduce that budget by 300 billion, but I will tell you today, Trevor, he has instead increased from what Uhuru's budget was by a further 410 billion. I know some people are using wrong figures when it comes to the total expenditure. The total expenditure is what you write here. It is 4.44 trillion. because the debt rollover is being excluded. The Kenya government is fond of removing a debt rollover, which is to in this budget 850 billion. If you add that to 3.599 trillion, it comes to 4.449 trillion. So what has your government done? Your government is increasing expenditure. Your government thinks that the best way to finance that increase is to overtax Kenyans. And I would tell you, I dare tell you this, that your projections on revenue are completely out of place. You are not going to realize it. There is no way you are going to collect over almost 698 billion more in this country. Income tax alone, you are projecting to collect over 300 billion more. 380 almost billion more. It is not going to be possible. And no matter how much you try to squeeze Kenyans, no matter how much you try to raid our pockets, you are not going to succeed. My final comment is that please, as a nation, let us not think or imagine that we will always pray out our problems. That every problem that we put ourselves in, even deliberately, that we'd go to God to take it away from us. God also looks at you and sees you irresponsible. He will tell you, you have to now carry your own cross. Okay,
Gisheng, is this a matter of being dishonest or facing a different reality once they come into office? Because they were saying even before they were there, this subsidy was made on consumption. Now they want to make it on production. So are they simply being dishonest, or is it that they found a different reality when they got into office, which is the explanation they've been consistently giving?
Were they out of government? If at all, were they ever out of government? And we've been reminded that last year, the president was the deputy president. He was never impeached, he never resigned. He received all the briefings, he always had all the reports. Okay? This particular time when there was opposition to the initial proposed increment on petroleum products, they were always in government. The subsidies have been there for a very long time. They were there even when these people were campaigning. And to be honest, what happens is members of parliament and the executive have access to information that we do not have. So by the time they design their manifestos, they are able to verify and know the actual status. They knew we were debt-ridden. They knew about all these issues. They may have denounced that the Russia-Ukraine was not an issue, but they knew deep down it was an issue. Climate change, COVID, and so on. But either they had ideas of how to overturn this glim situation, okay, and they communicated. You're paying too much tax, okay? At that point, the only thing we were told is the people who are receiving subsidies are the wrong people. It is the wealthy. We were not told there will be no consumption subsidy. There will be production subsidy. How does production subsidy, if at all, I have not seen it in the proposals properly. The finance bill has done away with some taxes, but how does production subsidy further the bottom-up economic agenda? Okay? And how do you start immediately by paying to a population that is suffering? Is fertilizer really a production subsidy? And even if we go that direction, the allocation for fertilizer has reduced in this particular budget estimate. Okay? So if you think about what Kenya Kwanza promised, and for me, having read the two manifestos, honestly, give it to Kenya Kwanza. They wrote it well. But clearly they did not mean even 30% of what they proposed. They said they wouldn't borrow, okay? They are borrowing almost 80 billion a month. That's a record high. If that was just during that period, yet the debt rollover that Honorable Badi is speaking about this year is going, the amount of debt we owe this year because of the Eurobond will be double, okay? And because of always being overambitious and not realistic with the revenue, they will end up borrowing just for cash flow in government, okay? But they are not being realistic. You will tax people where immediately consumption will go down. Trevor, if you've not reduced the consumption in your house, I don't know whether where you're getting your finances. The rest of us Kenyans, we've already reduced our consumption.
Yeah.
So if you increase VAT or whatever, we must cut. There's no need of anybody advertising weight loss programs. We will lose weight naturally because of the crunch we are in. Okay? Yet, here is a government that imagines there will be an increase in income tax, in VAT, people will be laid off. What script is this that the government has found to say, let us induce a lot of pain to Kenyans? I honestly do not understand the thinking or the philosophy of the Kenya Kwanza government anymore.
Okay. Yeah. Owen, we've now sort of gotten into the finance bill. Yes, go ahead.
I want to say this one thing, that it is not true that this government is borrowing 80 billion a day or a week, because the increase itself on this new budget is around 80 billion for the whole financial year. So there's no way you could be borrowing 80 billion a week for 52 weeks. You know, that would be a mind-boggling figure, and probably that would be enough to fund this government, you know. So what I'm trying to say is that there's a lot of untruths being peddled out there, and people are looking at Kenyans as being very gullible, and that they will buy the untruths that they peddle every day. But I can tell you that this country, I do not think Kenyans are fools to want to believe some of the gibberish things that are said, that, you know, we are borrowing. I don't know. I saw a professor, this guy who gets 100,000, what is his name? This professor who came on TV yesterday and said this country is borrowing 21 billion a day. I think it was on some of these things being said, really, even Kenyans look at them and say, you know, you can't just lie to us about this, because this is untruth, you know. So some of these things that are being peddled here, Kenyans need to know that people are just want to bring down the Kenya Kwanza manifesto, Kenya Kwanza government, just like they wanted it out from the beginning. So there is still the campaign mode, you know, try to hit this here, hit there. But again, after having said this, I just want to say that it is not true. And my friend John Badia is being economical with the truth in terms of that this government is just increasing taxes. This government is reducing over 20 taxes and removing some of them. And that is the reality. And he needs to tell us, yes. And I saw what you did yesterday on Citizen. Yeah. You actually told us this is being increased, but this is being exempted, this is being reduced, this is being removed. That's the reality. This government, and President William Ruto has been very clear, around 20 taxes must go. But he's looking at areas of growth and say, we need to remove the tax from here because it is inhibiting growth in that sector, but put the tax here. At the end of the day, cumulatively, if you look at it, actually, we are reducing taxes. For one, Trevor, the 8% VAT on gas has been removed. And this is a fact. And Citizen TV yesterday beamed it. The tax on gas. The railway development levy on gas has been removed. The import declaration fee, IDF, on gas has also been removed. The IDF has also removed across the board from 3.5% to 2.5%. It used to be 3.5%. Now it has been reduced to 2.5% in the finance bill. The RDL, the Railway Development Levy, has been reduced across board from 2% to 1.5%. And that is the truth. VAT on raw materials for fertilizer has completely been removed. Oh my. Yes, and that is the truth. VAT exempt on materials for manufacturing of pharmaceuticals, that is true. So what I'm saying is, when we come on TV and tell Kenyans, you know, all taxes are being increased, or taxes are being increased, we know that there are several taxes that are being exempted and several taxes that are being removed. And that is the truth. So when we say that this government is intent on increasing taxes all over, I think there is a lot of untruths in that. I know it is making my friend here uncomfortable when I say that, but I also know that he has a job that he has a brief to ensure that Kenya Kwanza becomes unpopular, just like it was during campaign. But the truth is, we are removing. I want to go on the subsidies. Today, the new Nigerian president that came into power the other day just removed all the subsidies on fuel, and that is on record. There must be a reason why African presidents or presidents all over the world are removing subsidies on consumption, okay? Because what we need to do is to look at subsidies on production. If we put subsidy on fertilizer, I know there'll be a bumper harvest. If the bumper harvest is there because fertilizer has been used to grow maize, then what will happen is the cost of maize will go down. So when millers buy maize to produce unga, it will bring the cost of unga down. That is one thing. Secondly, the subsidy on fuel that had been put, we all know people benefited and became billionaires out of the subsidy on fuel. Because today, even fuel marketers are telling you we haven't received that money up to today. And yet the books show that that money was paid out. So we were fueling corruption through subsidy. So one of the things to do is remove the subsidy. Why are we insisting on production subsidy? Because this country, any country that is the Smithian theories of economics are very clear. A country needs to produce for it to grow. And you can only tax better if the country produces. So there's a lot of misinformation out there that is being peddled, and our friends from Azimio have not come off the campaign mode. They are hell-bent to ensure that this government fails. But I also want to make it very clear here to my friend John Badi that if we could not bring down William Ruto during the 2022 elections, having had all the government machineries and all resources and all that, I think he's a smart politician who understands what this country requires and what this country needs to move forward. And one of them, he knows it requires resources. And these resources, you have a choice between borrowing and taking the country to the cliff, or say, let's stop borrowing. Let's look at what we have within the country and rescue this country. This country requires a rescue, and the finance bill is a rescue. And it is not about the individual pockets of people, but the collective, about the nation, about the country. It is not about how much I'm losing personally in terms of tax. It is about, am I able to sacrifice the little that I have to rescue my country from tottering to the age of what Greece was some other time or some other years ago.
Can I just rebut? You see, first, Trevor, I will avoid the politics that Owen Baya is trying to bring. I know he's trying to distract me, but I'm intelligent enough not to allow him to do so. You see, when Diana talked of almost 50 billion per month, she was not off the mark.
He said 80.
80 billion
a week. A week.
No, she talked of a month. 80 billion a month. She was not off the mark. I will give you by what Owen Baya is telling us is projected borrowing of 600. It's actually 663 billion in this budget, but he doesn't have statistics on how much has been borrowed from September. I do have them here, and this is something that, as a deputy leader of majority, you should have. It is with the Parliamentary Budget Office. William Ruto from September, I'm assuming he took office on September, the end of September, the last date of September. We know he took over office earlier. But the debt stock of Kenya on September 30th, 2022 was 8.7 trillion. And that is data that is there. By 31st of March, the debt stock was 9.39 trillion. Get the difference. That is 689 billion. You can now divide by 6 months to get the average. In fact, Diana was, I think, even lower. But let me again compare that to when Uhuru was in power. You know, we have been told that Uhuru was overborrowing, which is true. On this September 2021, the debt stock compared, the debt stock then was 7.99 trillion. On March 31st, the debt stock was 8.4 trillion. That difference is 405 billion. So compare the two. Who is borrowing more? That's number one. Number two, I think you should read this bill very carefully. If you are telling Kenyans that fertilizer has been exempt, that pharmaceuticals have been exempt, that agricultural products have been exempt, so Kenyans are going to feel good, then you may not, probably then you don't know the difference between zero rating and exemption. Zero rated commodities are cheaper. What Uhuru has left, let me now use it casually. What is currently obtaining? You go to zero rated supplies. Fertilizer is one of them. And that is being deleted by paragraph 24. You are removing fertilizer from zero rating to exempt. So fertilizer was not being taxed. It is now being exempt from tax, yet it was zero rated. You are making it more expensive. The same, and I mean, you can read, you have this page 344, zero rated supplies. Fertilizer was one of them. The other one was inputs of raw material locally purchased or imported for manufacture of fertilizers. That was also being zero rated. Now what Kenya Kwanza is doing is to take them to exempt, making them more expensive. And you are sitting here telling Kenyans on camera that you have removed taxes. This kind of deception should stop. And you know, our people should not be this gullible. But thank God some of us are here. Pharmaceutical products, just go up here. Agricultural pest control product was zero rated. It is now taken to exempt. You are making it more expensive. Pharmaceutical products were zero rated. Now you are taking them to exempt, and people are lying to you because they want you to support this bill. The treasury mandarins are lying to you, and you have no time to read these things. When you are reading finance bill, you go to the Finance Act as well. Read them together. And you know, life has been made easier for us because the sections that are being amended are attached here. So I got really, that's why I said, oh my God, because the deputy leader of majority is coming to mislead Kenyan that fertilizer is going to be cheaper. In fact, that is one of the reasons I have for asking what is really the policy direction of Kenya Kwanza. If they want to make fertilizer, they are subsidizing fertilizer, but they are making it more expensive. I wish we could go to the details of this finance bill.
Yeah. But perhaps it's a bit more important to elaborate the difference between zero rated and exemption.
Zero rated is simple. When a commodity is zero rated, let me give a very good easy example. When the first definition is zero rated commodities, you claim input tax. When a commodity is exempt, you will not charge VAT, but you don't claim input tax. And therefore the input tax make the price of that commodity more expensive. I will give you an example with this table. If this table is exempt from tax, then it means when you are selling it, you are not charging VAT. But all the VAT you paid in getting wood to make the table, getting nails to make the table, and any other things, glue, you will not claim it. That is exempt. In zero rating, if the table is zero rated, you charge zero tax, meaning you are not paying VAT. But again, all the tax that you paid on wood, on nails, on glue, everything to make this table, you are allowed to claim. Therefore, the table becomes more cheaper. So zero rated commodities are cheaper than exempt commodities. Now, what my friend is telling Kenyans is the moment a commodity appears under exempt, then that is good news. It is not good news when the same commodity was initially zero rated. If it was vertible, then it becomes cheaper, and we should laugh and clap for you. But you are telling us commodities which were zero rated, which were then cheaper, and you are making them more expensive by removing them from the zero rated category, which is Schedule 2 to the VAT Act. And you're taking them to Schedule 1, which is exempt commodities. You're making life impossible for Kenya. And by the way, besides just the ones I've mentioned, do you know they are taking now maize flour cassava flour, wheat flour are going to be taxed, are going to be charged VAT. What is this? What are we trying to do as a country?
All right, let's take a quick break on that note, then we come back with a lot more happening here. Trevor Mbija, Citizen TV Kenya, is the hashtag Daybreak. Oh, and I know has responded, Gishengo as well. We'll come back with them shortly.